Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. I have an awesome interview lined up for you guys this evening. These guys have been around since 1988. They're from Riverside, California. They play fast, they play hard, and they sound like no other. This band is no other than Voodoo Glow Skulls, and I have Frank, the lead singer, on the line with me right now. How's it going, man?
Hey man, how's it going?
It's going awesome. This is really cool.
Good.
Thank you for doing this, man.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Voodoo Glow Skulls. I mean, you guys are huge, man, in the ska, punk world, and hardcore. I mean, you know, when you guys first started this back in 1988, what were some of your goals at that point? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, starting out, I think, like most bands, well, I don't know, things have changed quite a bit, the way people perceive themselves, I guess, with their music and whatnot. It's a lot easier now for people to get their music out there than it was, when we first started. Mm-hmm. But, at first, our main goal was just to be able to play our instruments, and put songs together. That was exciting all in itself. We grew up listening to a lot of late 70s, early 80s, heavy metal and punk rock music, and that was pretty much our soundtrack, growing up. It's just all that stuff, all the British metal and all the British ska and punk, and we didn't really discriminate when it came to music as kids. We listened to everything, as long as it sounded good and it was appealing to the ear. We took it all in like a sponge and learned how to play that stuff, along with like records. My dad had old Latin records and some of the rock records we were collecting as kids and whatnot. We would go home and listen to them front to back and back to front and try to play them on our instruments, and at first, Voodoo Glow Skulls, that was our main goal, was just learn how to play the instruments, learn these songs, and then it moved on to originals and doing our own original tunes and whatnot. And then once we started noticing neighborhood kids hanging out outside of our parents' home where we used to rehearse, we would come out from a practice and there'd be like 20, 30 kids like in the front lawn, like hanging out, listening to the band practice from outside. And that just kind of, got us noticing that, hey, we could do this if we could find a venue or an avenue to get the music out there. And then it will progress from doing that to playing backyard parties in front of our friends, and that was pretty much our very first, I guess you could say, outlet to playing live, was playing friends' houses and backyards and stuff like that. So, that was kind of our initial goal, I guess you could say, was just to play the music and see if people would take to it and respond to it. And we used our friends as our friends, high school friends, were our very first audience. They would, like I said, they would go to our band rehearsals and hang out, and that's what kind of got us going, hey, we could do this on a bigger level and at least play in front of an audience, So that was pretty much it from the get-go.
Especially when you're young like that, man, and you've got, like you said, 20 to 30 people coming just to watch you rehearse. That's a boost in itself right there for you guys.
Yes. It was a good indicator for us, And then there was a guy who had a pizza place downtown in Riverside, California, where we grew up. There was a guy named Izad, an Egyptian guy, and he had a pizza place. And during the day, it was downtown by City Hall. During the day, it was just kind of like a pizza buffet, salad bar type of place for like all the suits and all the people that ran the city. And then at night, he would clear the salad bar out of the way and clear the tables and would bring in a little stage and would throw bands. And then he would start bringing in punk rock bands and touring bands and bands that were from out of the state. And he was the only guy in our immediate area that was actually doing that. So that allowed local bands like us to eventually get a gig at this place. And, those 30, 40 friends that would come sit down and watch us play or, listen to us play at the house, they would come to this club and pack it out. So we would bring half our high school, and promote the hell out of ourselves. And we would get a majority of our friends from the school to come. And that's what got us noticed by this local guy, It's like, well, these guys are actually promoting themselves and bringing in a crowd. And I'm going to put them on the opening slots for all these touring bands that are coming through, because I know they're going to bring some people. Mm-hmm. And that's how we started getting hooked up with all the cool shows. Locally.
I'm not knocking anything for the digital world right now and everything, because it's awesome, because like you said, everybody can put out their own demo at their fingertips now. But back in the day when you guys were coming out, it actually was pretty hard for people to get started and get recognition. And plus, too, people had to come out and see the shows and see these bands that are still around right now.
Right, and that was a big part of it. Is our first handful of tours were booked via snail mail. And cassette tapes. Mm-hmm. We recorded our first demo in a bedroom. A local guy who was recording bands on a cassette, like a 8-track player, recorded our demo. We duplicated. We found a local guy who would duplicate cassettes. We did like 50 duplicated cassettes. Did like a little bio, all photocopied stuff. There was really no internet back then or anything like that. And we would get contacts through other people and would send packages via mail, and you'd have to wait, a week for it to get there, and then hopefully they would get the mail and open it, and then however long it would take them to respond to you. So our very first tours were booked via mail, and yeah, things are different now. That's what I was trying to say earlier. It's kind of raised. Kids start a band now, and they immediately want to be on MTV or whatever, or YouTube. They go straight to YouTube or whatever, and that's how a lot of these bands are becoming famous. Is they've got all this access now to not only write the music, but they can record it and have professional album quality out of their laptop or their PC at home, and not necessarily have to go to a professional studio to get the sound that they need. And then 10 minutes later, it's up on the internet, and there's people hitting on it, and stuff becomes viral and whatnot, and it's totally easy. Well, it's a lot more flooded now, but it's just a lot more accessible now, and we didn't have those commodities when we were getting started.
Yeah,
like you said, it was a lot more grassroots oriented for sure.
And I think that today's music world is missing that. And the reason why I say that is because music is just so easy to get at your fingertips. But I've been to a lot of concerts, and to me, I love seeing the bands live. But where I'm in Kentucky, it's hard to see a lot of the bands I like, especially like you guys and NoFX and and Rancid and bands like that, because they just don't come here, and that sucks. But like you said, you guys started out with your grassroots, and you had to go out and see the bands, not like today.
Yeah, there was back in the day, it was going to the record store and stuff like that was more of like an adventure type of thing. You would go and you could tell a lot by a band's album cover. Mm-hmm. That's how I became a avid Iron Maiden fan. As I would I loved the imagery and the whole packaging and the liner notes and the photos. It was a package, and it went along with the music. It was almost like those little storybooks that you would read as a kid, where it would beep and tell you to change the page, and then the music or the narration, would go along with what you're looking at. Yeah. It was kind of similar to that in a weird way, and those days to me seem like they're long gone now. There's no more cool packaging. You can't. Record stores don't really exist anymore. To me, all that. It was cool. You'd get your paycheck and run down to the local store and drop half your paycheck on records, and a lot of the stuff you didn't have an opportunity to listen to until you got home, but you took a chance because the artwork and the imagery and all that stuff kind of sold it. It sold you. Mm-hmm. You'd pick up something that looked cool and you thought might look appealing, and you'd go home and you'd put it on your record player, and sure enough, it would be something that you could probably get into. Now it's just different. All that stuff's kind of gone. There's no more of that. No more creative packaging and stuff like that with music that comes along with the music, and it's kind of like a lost art.
There's not a whole lot of music stations on TV that that would play music now like they used to. I used to love watching MTV and these other music stations that would play Metallica and bands like that, and they'll play for a couple months, and they'll say world premiere video of Guns N' Roses or whoever, and you're like, oh hell yeah, that everybody's coming over to watch it with you, and those days are gone, and it sucks. It really does.
Yeah, it does. It's a different world now, man, with music, and I'll be honest with you, it has made it a little bit more difficult for bands like us who are just used to all that. Mm-hmm. It's like we record an album now, and it's like, what are we going to do with it? You know what I mean? It's like, we know we could get it out to our fans, but how can you get creative now and market an album like you used to be able to? And that's honestly what has put a lot of the record labels, I feel, out of business. Is that you're not giving them anything to work with anymore besides just the music. And you can have an image, but it's how you get that image out there now. It's a little bit tougher. You got so much more stuff out there, and it's easier to get it out there. but it's just easier to be original, you know, and you know, put yourself out there. So, I don't know, it's kind of a weird situation, you know. Luckily, we have a steady foundation in the history to where we can, you know, we still have a diehard fan base, and people have passed down the music from generation to generation now. So, I mean, it helps us out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I've been a fan for a long time. Love the music, love the ska part of you guys. I think you guys are a kick-ass band, and that's just my 2 cents. So, there.
Thank you. That's very, very cool. Thank you.
Hey, Frank, how's it playing with your brothers in the band? I know that you guys started out and formed Voodoo Glow Skulls, so how's it feel, dude?
You know, it can be the worst thing in the world, and it can be the best thing in the world, man. I mean, the fact that we're related helps us get past obstacles and bumps in the road that most bands can't.
Right.
You know, we grew up socking each other in the arm and nudging each other in the gut, and and the next day being able to get over it and get along, you know. So that helped. It helped us in those aspects. I think that could be the big secret of our success, is the fact that we've been able to do that. A lot of bands usually can't get past a certain point because eventually they have musical differences or personality change differences, and people that simply do not get along. And for us, you know, it's more like a family-based unit. You know, we're the only 3 original members in the band still. Everyone else is, you know, other people have come and gone. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, for us, just being able to see the world and travel and create something out of a bedroom at our home and be able to share it with the world and travel together, I mean, it's a great thing. You know, it's the reason why we still do it. You know, is that we can, and you know, we've been able to surpass certain things that most bands can't.
I know you guys come out in 91. You guys actually added the horn section with your band with Voodoo Glow Skulls. I was going to talk to you a little bit about that because that interested me a little bit. What made you guys decide to add the horns in Voodoo Glow Skulls?
Well, I mean, we've always had a knack and liking for ska. I mean, we grew up being influenced by ska music, and even though early on Voodoo Glow Skulls' first demos didn't really sound like anything like ska, it was more like a mixture between like Red Hot Chili Peppers and like Black Flag and a little bit more like a funky punk type of thing. And then, you know, we got turned on to bands like Fishbone, and Fishbone was probably the band that kind of swayed us to do more of a rock and roll thing. So that's what got us the whole, you know, doing the whole hybrid, you could say, of rock and of punk and rock and all that stuff. It's just, you know, listening to that band, they were just adding all these different influences and whatnot.
You said something earlier about the digital age here, and I don't mean to jump around on the questions here, but do you think that bands are more smarter to go the digital way and do it on their own? Or, I mean, what success have you guys found? I mean, do you like it that way, or just go ahead and just do it through a studio? How do you all want to do it?
I mean, well, we prefer the old school method just because it was, you know, for us, that's just what we know more, is go in the studio, record it, you know, and then hopefully find a record label that's going to go ahead and do the work for you. You know, we view the music and record the music, and then, you know, the record label is usually, their job is to market the music and to get it out there. You know, they usually have those connections and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So, you know, for us, I mean, that's kind of the mentality we've always had. You know, and now I would say for us, it's been a little bit more difficult since the digital age came along. Just because we're not marketers of music. We just write the music and you know, record it and throw it out there. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's good to have somebody that knows how to market it and how to sell it and how to put it out there. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's safe to say you're more the old school disc guy than digital guy, right?
Yep.
I want to ask you about this too. Your debut album with Who Is This Is for Dr. Strange Records in '93. You guys sold 200,000 copies worldwide. How did it make you guys feel about that, man? Well,
it was a big accomplishment back then, and it still is. I mean, it's something that you know, that still nowadays it's even harder to do for somebody on our level, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for just being a independent band on a small label, you know, I guess it happened to be during the right time, you know, when ska punk music was just starting to become popular, and you know, the Mighty Mighty Box Films came out like right around the same time actually as the Who Is This album, and that got you know, us some attention. They actually asked us to go on tour right when we were getting signed to Epitaph Records, And Dr. Strange Records, the Who Is This album, because we sold 200,000 copies, managed to get us the attention of Epitaph Records, and then, got us a record deal with them, which was pretty much got us to the next level and opened doors for us worldwide, and we were able to do things, on a higher scale and more on a worldwide scale. So, yeah, I mean, being able to sell that many records just off a handshake deal, which is basically what it was out of California. Bill from Dr. Strange had already been doing some great business selling and trading, new and used punk rock records and music in general. So, I mean, we were at the right place, and a lot of time was just good timing, for us. And we carried that momentum on with us into Epitaph Records, and that helped us. It definitely did. That's to this date, the Who Is This album and the Fear May record, the first album on Epitaph, are the two most requested albums, from fans. They want to hear music off those albums. I mean, we can survive on tour playing music off just those two albums, and people would be happy, and we always ask people online, fans through Facebook and stuff, what songs they'd want to hear on the tour, and majority of the responses we get are songs from those two albums. So that was a good time for us, definitely.
When that CD came out and you guys found out that people were buying it from like Japan and Australia, Mexico, and South America, I mean, did y'all ever think of anything like that before? Like, wow, these people overseas are digging our music?
No, man, we never thought it would get to that level. I mean, that just proved to us how big and how universal the underground, independent punk rock music scene is. It's definitely one of those things. It's like an elite club you're a member of. Is what it seems like to me.
Right.
And the fact that it reaches people in all these corners of the country, of the world, I should say, it's amazing to me. And for us to be one of those bands that was able to hit all these places back in the day before we had internet and before we had access to all this social media and whatnot, I mean, it was definitely a big accomplishment because, I mean, it was a lot harder to reach people, without all the access to all the technology and stuff that people have now. So, I mean, it proved to me that people were listening. People were listening to music and liked it and liked what we had going on. The speed of the music and the imagery that we had. Again, we were fans of bands like Iron Maiden and all these like British punk rock bands or British heavy metal bands and whatnot. So that's what kind of got Voodoo Glow Skulls. Our first couple albums are kind of busy, and we've got our Voodoo Man character out there. It's similar to us. It's like our Eddie of Iron Maiden. It's like our mascot, if you will. That's how we started coming up with cool artwork. Artwork was always a big part. Has always been a big part of our albums and music and imagery of the band. So I mean, we took a lot of that from stuff we grew up listening to, and luckily for us, a lot of people bought into it at the time and got where we were coming from. And I think a lot of it is just that people could relate to what we were writing about. At the time, we were just writing about stuff that other people could relate to. You
guys did it the right way. I mean, you guys busted your asses off and then finally got recognized and did it the right way that you should pay your dues and then, have your own thing going on.
Oh yeah, there were definitely many Top Ramen and Taco Bell tours. We would, back in the day, we would take $40 and be like, okay, there's 6 of us. Everybody can order, $4 worth of food or whatever, or $5 worth of food at Taco Bell. Go get what you can for $5, and that's pretty much how we survived on the road for like at least the first 4 to 6 years of our career. Was living off boxed foods and stuff that we would get at the 99-cent store and cheap menus at the cheap fast food establishments. And that's how we did it. We would pile into a minivan and stack equipment and wherever we could, and we would just hit the road and play wherever they would let us play. And that's what you had to do.
Who were some of your influences, Frank, coming up?
As far as like music and whatnot, I don't know. A lot of the influences that we had, man, were, believe it or not, like comedy stuff. Cheech and Chong was a huge influence. Our first albums got samples off, Up in Smoke and stuff like that. We're big into comedy, like Eddie Murphy and all that stuff was big in the 80s and late 70s. You had Eddie Murphy Raw and Delirious and
yeah.
Richard Pryor. All that stuff, I mean, was just it was just our culture back then. That was stuff that we were listening to. That was what was hip. And then in the '80s, ska music hit pretty big. You had the Specials, we had Madness, we had bands like the English Beat and all these British ska bands. But at the same time, we also liked aggressive music. We liked both sides of the spectrum. We liked the Iron Maiden and we liked Judas Priest and all these crazy other heavy metal bands and stuff. And we were just kids that would bounce back and forth, and we would listen to it all. We didn't really follow a trend. We didn't really stick to any clique. We simply just loved the music and the whole imagery of everything that was going on and the way that people dressed and the whole lifestyle. And being suburban kids from Riverside, California, we didn't really have access to any of that. We lived it through the music, and the first opportunity we had to kind of create our own thing and create our own I guess you could say image and that's what we did. We took a little bit from what we had learned from all those bands and made it our own, and then you got Voodoo Glow Skulls.
Where did the song Charlie Brown come from? Because I really like that song.
That's actually a cover song. That's an old song from the 50s and 60s. A band called the Coasters.
Okay.
Who were like a black comical kind of 50s band. They would sing, they had several hits, but they were kind of like a goofier band. They would write these songs that told stories. They had the song Poison Ivy, Yakety Yak.
I remember that.
all these old classic songs. It was another thing that influenced us. As we grew up listening to AM radio, listening to oldies but goodies. That's where a lot of rock and roll roots are from, is all the old tunes like that. So the Coasters were one of those bands that have songs that we could relate to, and they're pretty much the Voodoo Glow Skulls of their era, and we pretty much took that Charlie Brown song. It was just one of those many songs we grew up listening to as kids and kind of made it our own. And a lot of people think it's an original Voodoo Glow Skull song, which it really isn't. It's just a cover that was pretty much became our own bastardized version. And we turned it into, we made it our own,
Right. What can fans expect at a Voodoo Glow Skull show from you all?
High energy. We still, after all these years, we're still very energetic. It's a live energy show, very fast-paced. Usually, if there's a good crowd in front of us and people that are familiar with the band, there'll be some sort of crowd interaction, whether it be via slam dancing or moshing or whatever you want to call it, and stage diving and crowd surfing. It's just a good time. It's just like a party. A lot of people react to the music in a real manic way. And to this day, we still get some of the craziest shows. We still get people coming up to us going, "Hey, man, you know what? I've seen a lot of bands come through here, and this is by far probably the most fun show I've been to in a long time, just because the crowd interacts with you guys, and you guys have this connection with your fans that turn this whole place upside down." And that's a good thing. We enjoy doing that. We enjoy seeing the crowd feed off of us, and we feed off of them just as much. So yeah, people can expect a loud, high energy show. I mean, we're pretty loud. For a lot of people think, we're going to come out there because we're plugged as a ska band that, we're kind of like a soft tone band, but we're quite the opposite. We're kind of like the Metallica and Slayer version of ska, kind of Metallica.
I mean, how can you not get, down to y'all's music? It's got good beats, good music. Every band that everybody likes, I mean, they can reflect to their music. They can just go and just let loose. I mean, because music is relief for people.
Yeah, it's just it's just the energy, then I think that we put out. I think that's what catches people first and foremost. As they it's not for everybody, obviously, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of people that get it, they appreciate what we do. They like it. They like the aggressiveness of the music and the fact that we have these tempo changes. We go from like a groove and ska, reggae type of beat and we'll transition into like a hardcore punk, beat and I don't know. I think that it appeals to a lot of people, that like both styles of music. It's the perfect transition for them,
Frank, let me ask you this. The very first time that you guys heard the fans singing your music, Was it overwhelming? I mean, did it take you by surprise? What happened, if you can remember?
Well, it's just a good feeling, you know. When people know you, it's a feeling of accomplishment, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When it just proves that people have bought the record and have gone home and have listened to it, and you know, again, if people are singing along to it, then that means that you've struck a nerve with them, you know, and have done something that has probably impacted them in one way or another. And we've had a lot of people come up to us to this day, you know, people that have been in and out of prison or whatever, or people that have had a rough life or have had hard times in their life, and a lot of them will come up to us and say, man, you know, that one song on that one album, I used to go home and listen to it and skateboard to it, and it would get me away from this problem or that problem, or it inspired me to do this or that, you know. And it's kind of like the same thing when you're on stage and you've got people singing your songs and singing along word for word. You know, it's a great sense of accomplishment for us. You know, it solidifies that we've done some things right. You know, and it proves that success can come in many shapes and forms and sizes. You know, it doesn't necessarily come in the color of money. You know, it doesn't come. You know, money isn't just isn't just what we pick success. You know, it's what you've been able to accomplish as well. You know, and that's one of them great accomplishments. You know, when you can go somewhere and strike a crowd and have them sing along to your music. It's a great feeling. Always, still to this day.
Especially when your music hits somebody that's had a tough time and you get them through that. That would leave me speechless if somebody was to bring it to me like that.
Yeah, and it does. I don't know what to say a lot of times. You know, it's like you can come up with well, thank you. You know,
right.
But when people are sincere and they try to tell you their story, you know, we listen, you know, because we like to interact with our fans. A lot of people that have gone to our shows will say, man, you know, you guys are really cool because you guys don't just play and then just disappear into the backstage. You guys actually disappear and then you come back and then mingle in the crowd and greet your fans and say hello and sign autographs and do all that stuff. And you know, and that's a big part of the gig for us. You know, it's you know, go out there and let people know we appreciate them coming to the show, and if they want to have a word with us and talk to us, we're pretty accessible. You know, a lot of bands aren't like that.
It's very true. When you guys write your music and you guys have got the horn section and everything, does everybody contribute, or how do you guys work that out?
It usually starts off with like the guitar riff, and then everybody will kind of throw in. It's kind of the way I describe it to people. It's kind of like one of those like a potluck party type of thing. You know, it's like everybody brings a dish and contributes to the meal, and somehow it all comes together. Everybody sits down and eats, and it works out. I mean, that's kind of the best way to describe it. I mean, we'll start off with like an idea, and it's usually with the guitar. Our guitarist, Eddie, my younger brother, he's one of the main songwriters in the band. It'll usually start off with him, and he'll come up with some ideas, and then we'll all feed off of that. You know, we're luckily for us, we have our own studio now, and it's accessible for us to be able to go in there, write music, write songs, record them, you know, dissect them, redo them, whatever we want to do. Even before we had access to the studio, you know, it just somebody will come up with an idea and we all kind of feed off of it, you know. And luckily enough, everybody in the band is seasoned enough to where we can do that. You know, we can jump in and figure out whether something's going to work or not. And everybody pretty much pulls together and does their own part, you know. And it's kind of always been like that, even when we were young and learning together. We knew what we wanted to sound like after a while, and if it sounded good to us and it appealed to us, and most importantly, if it didn't sound like somebody else, then we would go for it and we would try it. And that's kind of how it works now. You know, somebody will come up with an idea. Sometimes the horn player will come up with a horn riff, and you know, we'll be like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," you know, and somebody will feed off of that and write something to go along with it. And the next thing you know, we have a song. You know, and so yeah, I mean, everybody pretty much does their own part. I mean, everyone's pretty much responsible for bringing their own stuff to the table.
I've got just a couple more questions here, brother, and I'll let you go. What do you think that Voodoo Glow Skulls brings to the table? And I mean, I know you guys have been around for a long time, but what, in your opinion, do you guys bring?
I think what we bring, man, is that I think what a lot of people can relate to, you know, as far as us go, what we bring is just that we're real. You know, a lot of people, I mean, our image and everything that you see on stage is what you're going to see off stage. Mm-hmm. we don't dress up in costumes. We don't do anything like that. We don't have any gimmicks. We go out there, we play the music, we play our instruments hard, we beat the crap out of our instruments, and we go out there, and that's how we come across to people. And I think people see that. People read into that. They see it, and they get it. And and that's all. That's what we bring to the table, man. Is just the fact that I think that we're just realistic. We're just dudes just like anybody else, and we just happen to be fortunate enough to play music and write this style of music that caught on during a certain time. It happened to be at the right place at the right time with a lot of it, and we became what I guess a lot of people, we're known for. Kind of like a lot of people, we've been called the godfathers of like punk ska, and being able to transition it into like more Latin, because we're Mexican, come from Latin background, so we've been able to kind of cross over in a way, and with a Latin audience as well. And some of our Spanish songs are some of the more requested songs in places like Japan and places where they don't even really speak Spanish, and stuff like that. So I mean, the fact that we're true and we're realistic and just do what we feel and what comes from the heart, man, is I think a lot of people can relate to that, and I think that's the strongest asset I think that we have as a band.
A lot of people can disagree with me on this, but I really don't care. I mean, this is my own opinion. Now, I'm not saying this just because you're on here, but a lot of people who know me know that I do love your guys' music, and I've always said that you guys, and plus the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, have been the forefathers of ska music, man. There's really not a whole lot of other bands that are still around because of it. You guys are the ones that are still sticking around and trucking on through.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I mean, I think us in the Boss Tones we're known for making ska music into more like a rock and roll. I mean, ska before was its own thing. It was like its own, like a subgenre of music, and it was a whole third wave of ska came along, and a lot of bands became famous and commercialized it. And so, the Boss Tones had a lot of commercial success. If it wasn't for those guys, asking us to go on our first U.S. tour, we probably wouldn't be where we're at now, and we credit a lot of our success to those dudes, because they're the ones that came to that local club I was telling you about. And that local promoter put us on as their opener, and those guys saw what we were doing. And they're like, well, these guys are doing what we're doing, but they're doing more of a street level thing. We're more like a West Coast, kind of like a street gang with music, with instruments, in a way. I mean, we're all Latino, grew up in a kind of a rough neighborhood, and instead of joining a gang, we bought guitars and locked ourselves in a room and played music, and the Boss Tones came from more like the East Coast, Boston area, and they took a liking to us, and they're like, man, we should take these guys on tour with us, and they're the ones that invited us to go on our real first national tour where we were playing legitimate venues, and that opened the door for us big time as far as like being able to go from playing people's basements and get-togethers to playing the legitimate club, and having our name in lights or whatnot, or on the marquee and tickets and stuff, tickets sold and stuff like that. That didn't exist in our world until we went on those tours, so yeah, I mean, to this day, those guys still ask us if we go on tour with them whenever they do stuff. So I mean, there's definite camaraderie there and a mutual respect. Those guys hold down the East Coast, we hold down the West Coast, man.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I just want to say, too, that you guys did a great cover of Used to Love Her, But I Had to Kill Her by Guns N' Roses. You guys did an awesome cover on that one. And plus, some of my favorite ones by you guys has been Love Letter, which is freaking amazing, Charlie Brown, El Cucuy, and Left for Dead. Left for Dead has the little trumpet, man, and it's just, that right there kicks the song. And if that can't get the hook to you, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, man, thank you. Those songs you named right there are some of the most popular, by the way, too. They're the ones that have gotten us, some success. I mean, Left for Dead was, we got some love there from Taco Bell. They used some of that in some of their commercial there with the Chihuahua dog when they were doing that whole campaign, and that was a great little payday for Voodoo Glow Skulls, and it has got us some commercial success that way. And then the Guns N' Roses cover, that one was on the Mr. and Mrs. Smith, soundtrack. So I mean, all that stuff, all those songs there, the ones that you mentioned are the ones that have been able to open some doors for us and some other avenues and whatnot. So I mean, yeah, thanks very much for noticing and recognizing. I mean, those are some of the better songs. I would agree there, as far as be appealing to the masses, I guess you could say.
What do you guys have coming up here in July? Because it looks like you guys are off till the 7th, and you guys are going over to Denmark for the Open Air Festival?
Yeah, we got on the Roskilde Open Air Festival, which is probably one of the biggest tours in Europe. It's in Denmark. We're going to fly just for that show. We're flying in just for that one show. Flying in, playing it, and coming back home. And then we've got a couple gigs throughout July that are, local, what we would consider local gigs. And then we do our next tour pretty much the whole month of October. We will be on tour across the U.S. doing the Hellcat Records tour with the Toasters, who are another great ska band, and a band out of L.A. called Left Alone, who are on Hellcat Records, and they're like more like a rancid punk rock ska type of band, but they're excellent bands that we've toured with several times, and now that's what you got to do, man. You got to package yourself out with other bands that are comparable, and throw yourself out on the road and hope for the best, and hope for good turnouts and for good crowds everywhere you go. So I mean, that's going to be the next one for us. Is October. We'll be pretty much across the whole U.S.
Guys and gals, check out any Voodoo Glow Skulls CDs that you can get your hands on before they are no longer in existence, because I'm telling you right now, the old stuff plus the new stuff, just great stuff. And also, too, last year they came out with a CD called Break the Spell, one of their newest ones. Get it. Like I said, get all their music if you can. Really, really great stuff. Frank, man, thank you so much for doing this interview. I really appreciate it as a fan. Thank you for putting your all's music out for us.
Thank you very much, man. We appreciate the opportunity, and you guys look out for us. Voodoo, voodoo, voodoo.
Hey, how can fans reach out to you guys and say, hey, we like your music, or we just want to buy your merch? How could they do that?
Oh, well, we're just like anybody else. We're on Facebook. People can look us up on Facebook. That would probably be the best way and the quickest way to get a hold of an actual band member. Our guitarist, Eddie, actually does the Facebook, and he is on there quite frequently. Or you can just go on our website, voodooglowskulls.com, and sign our guest book, and we get a notification. Anybody puts a comment on there, an email comes directly to me, and he as well, and we are very good about replying to fans. We like interaction with the fans, and we thrive on that. So absolutely, you can get a hold of us.
Oh, definitely. Hey, would you care to do a promo for the show before I let you go?
Yeah, no problem.
Just say, this is Frank from Voodoo Glow Skulls, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Okay. This is Frank from the Voodoo Glow Skulls, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour. Hoodoo, voodoo, we do.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody stick around. We got some Voodoo Glow Skulls coming up for you this evening. And as always, you hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour on Uber City Radio. Thanks. Rock out, Frank, and have a good one, man.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.